one professional New York City, and Chinese and Latino Americana descent. For me and my journey in wine, you come into it and you're studying France, you're studying Italy, and you're studying vinifera. So I had to kind of unlock what was my relationship with fermentation, and for me, rice was always at the center. So the past couple of years, doing my own work, I've really started to understand the different ways that we can ferment and the different ways we're connected to our own ancestral knowledge. And Sool is a category that has been mind-blowing and really transformative for me. So I really wanted to focus in and hone in what's happening right now in the United States through Sool makers. So round of applause for our brewers that are here today with us. Up first, I have Sung Kim. I actually heard about you brewing like 4 years ago at People's. I went to go visit Daryl, and she was like, "Oh, one of my people here is making their own broccoli at home." That was the first time I heard about it. So it was really exciting to fast forward 4 years later. This is your first time pouring at ABV. You're pouring your Sung is making everything in the Korean small clay. What's the name? Ongi, in the ongi. And doing all small batches. That is what is in your first glass, and I will let him tell you about it.
Hi, I'm Sool. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the first class that's here like. So this is a clarified rice brew called Tongji, also called Yakju, interchangeable. All of my brews are made 100% short grain sticky rice. Goes into 3 separate steps of fermentation on its coming to. And this is just what happens when you kind of like racking. You go around.
For our second speaker today, we have Mirandi Cole. Mirandi is a brewer at Hanamakoli, and this is her first time speaking at a panel, so round of applause for Mirandi. Mirandi is Brooklyn-born, Bronx-raised. So we started into the artisanal world doing leather goods and designing jewelry. So somehow found her way into brewing beers and clean brewery, and is now at Hanamakoli. So thank you for being here, Mirandi. And of course, we have our fucking Hanamakoli. I think what's so incredible about what Alice is doing is, she started brewing with her dad. Then went to NYU, started home brewing on her own, started doing pop-ups, had a real passion for this. Tried to go into a real world shop, and then decided, no, I'm going to start my own brewery. And she's taken this category from just being, let's say, starting at home brew, but now you can get Hanamakoli at 2-star Michelin restaurants and master sounds are pouring her brew. So round of applause. And I want to start off with Mirandi. Tell us what Sool is.
All right. So Sool is actually just the term for a brand, but I think it goes beyond. Right? It kind of does encompass all other types of are going to take care amongst the family and our table, but it's even beyond that, right? That includes broccoli of different styles, varieties, sojus, and other types of things as well, like fortified wines, like brahajus and things that maybe you're not familiar with. But I think the hope behind and the passion project behind what we're doing here is that people will become more aware of Sool and it becomes more part of the day-to-day. It's kind of our intention. But beyond just what Sool means, there's a lot of importance that goes into like the traditional style of how we're actually brewing. And that's kind of the focus. And that comes down to ingredients, which we're going to get into later, which is mostly going to be rice, in different starches, or using that starch as the sugar component, and using water as well as fermentation. And we'll kind of dive deeper into those categories as well. But I really think that, not only just rice and water being part of, I think Nuduk is the heart of what it's doing. And it's really it's changed my life for brewing. And I think there's a lot of information there's a lot of fermentation happening across Asia, but I think really Nuduk is such a powerhouse of a fermentation starter that I think it's really what sets Sool apart.
So building on what Miranda said, food is a general term to describe alcohol in Korean, but for our context, we're using it to describe as Miranda mentioned makgeolli and soju and chakju and yakju, but there's some stuff that you can never heard of, right? Ikaju is a solid type of makgeolli that you eat with the food. Bahaju is a fortified one. Point is that food is a general term for component. From our perspective, it has to all ends of the reaction when it comes to fermenting any with food. So who here knows what Nuduk is? Okay. So, Nuduk is a traditional Korean fermentation starter. It is really similar to the standard Chinese yeast balls that you see in the market. And functionally is somewhat similar to the koji and yeast combination that you find in the cooking version. But the unique thing about Nuduk is that it's typically ambiently elongated. So there isn't any kind of collection and aggregation process when it comes to any culture, whether that be fungi, yeast, or other bacteria. When it comes to the fungi, of course, there comes to the bloating, which is what typically occurs with those. But there's also many different varieties of fungi and fungi, completely independent cytopathogenic, such as vitamins, and when it comes to the yeast, it's not even in the same base, right? Or the same cereal base, and on top of it is not just sugar and Saccharomyces, but our food is actually dominant, otherwise known as which is also the yeast that creates the still a very, very productive culture in treatment of food. And then, most special of all, when it comes to the biology, it is scientific culture. When we talk about sake and we're no longer talking about the singular styles that are like purely about expression of the rice and no textural or application of the form. And acidity and lactic acidity or microbial creation in the ferment is critical to the health and the finish of the wine. So in the room, have a really healthy amount of lactobacillus culture that creates lactic acid throughout fermentation. The unique thing about it is the polyculture one. It's inoculated in the same starter, and these cultures that are typically viewed as separate application here to inoculating as one, and then teaching in the second step is sooner you have a diastatic or a parallel fermentation day one. And that raises, of course, challenges, but also so much opportunity.
So we're actually gonna start with the second tasting, which you have moving on. So we're actually going to launch you for your taste. Launch you kind of building off of what you mentioned. Our first, for the first feed, you're usually introducing the Nuduk, and then off of there, that's where the methodology comes in. It moves to the brew, depending on which the recipe, the style, the texture, the ABV, all of that really plays a part in how we build and what you can. So for this particular course, we like to recommend 35 days. And because of that, it's really like to really great the last 10 days, and and my range of movement. The regulation, so sustainable, limited, sustainable, and that's also very traditional. And honestly, don't be fire water or not. But they ready to find it.
That's right.
I'm talking about things. So across all the production, we're incorporating two main variety prints. Medium and size. There are also very which is the prominent variety of varietals native to medium. And when it comes to the bio, obviously right? For that reason, it was a little we find it very, very good. On top of the organic and the region or grain from the bottom. In the production, or two varieties of generally to be able to create a medium grain because it has a lot of energy.
Listen to some of the methodologies that you guys use for birth. Starting with some. What are some methodologies that you stick to with your own?
So when it comes to methodology, I feel like there's a lot of things to think about and decide how you're going to going on to how you put your right, you're going to paint your degree, and what kind of you're going to potentially. So my first start with which is where you take meal breaks and milk and flour or 3 grains and partially keep it microwave hot water. Similar to how you cook up water. Then following the feeds, I feed a total of 3 times. Are just whole grain rice beans and added into the traditional flavors of you know, there's depending on how you want your food to come out and how you want to type it through, there's a lot to
This is a methodology, like some people are saying, but to summarize, so we give consumers the kind of the angles or the lens at which you can look at it is the number of stages of realization, right? The way the rice is cooked. You can look at it from a perspective. So is it diluted? Does it have sediment? And then there's of course a whole separate world of super historically relevant foods that have a whole name of their own, right? Meaning it's a name that is tied to a family and multi-generational that is a classic title for them. or it's tied to the lunar calendar, or it's tied to different again, spiritual ceremonies. And those through those kinds of things, not ceremonies as well. When it comes to the staging of the wedding, right? I push people to try to understand the tools and tools, right? They are tools for the women to be able to control how much starch and therefore how much sugar a live ferment has access to at any given time. And through that, we can, of course, make sure that the ferment is going well and the ferment is healthy, right? And you're getting full conversion of fresh sugar and full conversion of sugar to alcohol. But then there's like, through these methods, through these stages, separating out your seeds, depending on how you cook your grain and how much new water you're adding to the brew via the grain, you can alter flavor, right? So obviously the wines in front of you that you're tasting, they're made by entirely different people, entirely different grains, and varying methodology. But when you look to just what you produce, you'll start to be able to taste style, and you'll be able to understand that a style is better by understanding their methodology. That's the connection.
Can we introduce Jeff's wine?
Oh, yes. So speaking of which, on your very right is a blueberry makgeolli from someone who's not here, but very near and dear to all brewers, named Jeff Brewridge. He's based in Connecticut and has had a YouTube channel dedicated to home brewing makgeolli for I don't know how many number of years, at least 10 years. Jeff is an example of someone that visited Korea, tried makgeolli, was so wowed by it, but then he didn't have access to it once he came home to the States and decided to make it home. The interesting thing about Jeff is that he has pretty much tried to figure out how to brew on his own, meaning all of you guys can figure it out too. But the blueberry makgeolli, this is one of his like more fun and young style. It's a Tanyangju recipe, a single stage brew where rice, water, and noodles are added. And then on day one of the ferment, he also contains blueberries that were frozen, kind of like break up the initial cellular wall of the fruit, and then added to the ferment from day one to co-ferment together. It's very young, so very complicated because of the limiting of the wait. But an example of a home brew style and also taking into consideration of fruit to co-ferment.
And we're also passing around all the bottles. If you look at Jeff's bottles, there's a code that's going to take you to a YouTube video where he breaks down how to make makgeolli so you can make it out. So if you want to snap that picture, I kind of want to go a little bit more, switch gears. What are some places that you've seen makgeolli that have been surprising? What are some pairings that you've had that have been surprising to you? Randy? Yeah,
The weirdest pairings I would say is, I think you see this everywhere where you take, something ethnic or something Asian or experience. And to make it more relatable, they try to blend it or something. And this was one of the instances where someone took a makgeolli and paired it with blue cheese. And I personally thought it was the weirdest thing until I tried it. It kind of makes sense, but at the same time, but that was probably the most interesting one.
Weird one, or beer tasting that they would never been to. I brought it to the country. They paired it with a food, and they brought it out of food.
I mean, I've been seeing all kinds everything. But, you know, I would like to find them, I actually don't think there is such a thing as a too weird of a parent. But I am a little bit extreme. I want to push people to like change their understanding of the comparability of Asian products. It's not about Asian products pairing with Asian food. It's about what does that one taste like? What does that food taste like? It doesn't go together, right? And I think frankly, that objective judgment transcends any kind of cultural boundary when it comes to presentation. Because no matter how, like, even for us, I can look at food as its own category of deserves to be recognized every single day. But the universal laws of fermentation are the things that is the thing that we make, and is what makes whatever in those classes feel familiar to you, right? Because there's really similar reactions when it comes to ferment and how that might be broken down, even if you're comparing it to like a grape wine or a cider, right? And so I don't get as weird as, right? I am really welcome it. And I think the more experimentation there is,
Let's talk about accessibility into making your own foods. How easy was it for you to dive into homegrown?
So it was very serendipitous happening. Actually, I was just grocery shopping. I used to live, food products in Victoria. Just grocery shopping there, and I was walking down the Korean aisle, and out of the corner of my eye, I see not one but two separate brands of food there. I was like, oh, I can literally just buy this. So I thought it was fun, and that's how I first started homebrew. They're talking to Alex a little bit as well. I was very lucky to actually have the first monthly I which started in life to be Alex's. So yeah, it's a good jumping off point from there. But it is very easy, I think, nowadays to get access to resources to home.
and we're gonna be doing a demo of everyone here that kind of do process in the next class. But the key, and even though moving because of microbial diversity, it is such fermentation, but the chemistry is so, right? It's rice and water noodles, and you could buy the noodle in a food processor, and you could buy the rice at a food processor, and water you have at home. You just need a filter for the farming. And it's as simple as making a match, and even if you don't understand everything that's going on with it, the steps are so easy that you can continue to try and try again. And you'll start to notice very good for those groups. So not only are we the three questions that actually challenge people, they're not actually, but if you are, they can deal with it. Because they can are very component and
I think something really beautiful that's happening as well. Since I tried your broccoli 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I tried your broccoli. Since then, there's broccoli breweries popping up all over the world, all over the country. You were just mentioning the other day in Mexico City. There's Copenhagen. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. It's in Texas. And it's a category that's growing. And it's like a response to the diaspora and also a response to people who are inspired by that diaspora. Yeah. So I think that's also a beautiful thing to reach back to your culture, but also to give it to others. Yeah. So if you want to speak a little bit more about the state of the category now and how it's growing and how it's something that all of us as professionals need to be aware of, we need to learn how to bring them to our table and present them to anybody who's walking in our doors and sitting at our table. Let's kind of expand on that a little bit.
yeah. So this industry, I mean, this product, this style of fermentation is thousands of years old, right? And this category has had major ups and downs, right? Let's start with like stay within the contemporary time frame, like 1900 on, right? At the beginning of the 1900s, some breweries were everywhere, right? Every town had one or two local producers, right? Of course, there was the big guys too. Then we saw war, famine, occupation, industrialization, consolidate breweries, push out more brewers, and actually from the different breweries. We saw, a lot of the larger Makgeolli breweries that remained switch over to a conventional style of production that involves things like wheat flour and enzyme and yeast and sorbate and aspartame, et cetera. And that's kind of like where we have been stuck up until the early 2000s. That is not to say that there isn't incredible traditional brewers in Korea. There have been, so many brewers that either have come to multi-generational knowledge on how to brew their family's wine and have survived this today and now coming back, right? There are thousands of young brewers in Korea that are launching their own brands and coming out with a new product. It is a flourishing industry in Korea. That being said, outside of Korea, in front of you are two do not have the opportunity to be exported to the regulatory region. And as we look, that's why we don't know anything about it, right? So that's kind of like the perspective for why Hanamaka started, and the reason why all the breweries, whether it be the four in LA or the one in Georgia or the one in Seattle, one in Portland or one in Bogota, Mexico City, Copenhagen, Finland, Canada, right? And then of course that's New York. This is the problem that we're all trying to do, right? Is this idea that traditional methodologies of food have commercial viability and that they are relevant today before we all have this, right? Of course, there has been Makgeolli booms in the past that have been out for any number of reasons. But I honestly believe that people were focused on the product and not on the integrated culture.
I'm gonna open the floor for questions. Question, yeah, right here in the front.
Hi, I was very interested in the discussion categorized Sool. I know that you make conversation about some of it, we expanded about that. I'm just curious if you could maybe, hello. All right, I'm just curious if you could maybe wax poetic or any of you for a second, we live in a culture where maybe we rush overly simplify and categorize and how flattening that can be. I'm just curious to know from all of you what tacks you take to sort of like plant those seeds of curiosity, get people to be like, oh, I can learn more than like, what is it? How do you market it? You also talking about that. Just there's not really a question about trying to wax poetic about that journey for all of you.
So in summary, to talk, expand more about what is the question? What am I trying to do? Oh.
How do you sort of spread that capacity to be like, well, okay, I know it's like a big question.
Okay, I think Randy and Andrew both know a bit about me. And I mentioned this in ABV Volume 1, which is to be relentless. To repeat the same thing over and over and over again, and continue to sharing the methodology and history and all of that, every single house. That is the only way that the food category, also many other categories, so culturally embedded products are going to make their way outside of these like homogenous monolithic boxes that Western markets try to put them, right? Like this field that we're getting in, every guest in our tasting room gets the spiel. Every market we go to gets the spiel, right? Every visitor in the brewery gets the spiel. And we don't care whether you care about technicals. We don't care whether you even like Korean food or Korean culture, right? We think that it's like a self-validation exercise of being like, this content is worthy of attention, and therefore, of course, you're interested in it, right? And being really persistent and not veering away from it, right? At least that's been my strategy thus far, and it's been working out okay. Of course, maybe there's maybe more elevated way of doing it, you know? Or anyway, like you talk to so many people about monthly too. This one should take.
Well, I think coming from the grooming side where, I know this has started with you as a really genuine, you're tenacious about it, you're very, driven in this direction. I think from the grooming side, I really admired that when I started looking on it, and I really kind of took on that attention and that thoughtfulness as well in grooming. Like really there, I feel so passionately, even being there for 2 years. So like there's still so much to learn. And I think really just education is just like knowledge and sharing that with other people. Because I think when I talk to other people and they explain what's so many, they can feel that passion that I have towards it, and spending so much time at the story and really trying to figure out the nuance of the day makes it so much more fascinating. And I feel like if you just share that with people, they also can, like they can pick up on. Yeah, I just really think it's sharing that knowledge and passion, and making it like we were talking about accessible, because I wasn't growing here before, didn't know about marketing, and now it's like all I want to do. So like, I think it's interesting for people who want to dive.
For some context, like Alex and Randy, I don't know the introduction at all. I have a background in wine retail and when it comes to introducing consumers to people coming in shopping for market, getting in, navigating that expectation. I think people, when they come into a space like that, they want to pigeonhole it into something, and it's hard not to get into them, especially in the service, right? At the end of the day, I'm serving you and I want to feel comfortable. So it's navigating their expectations in a way that will help me without overcorrecting them but also being stern and not getting into the
Yeah, like
it's a good balance.
like
One more question in the audience.
Okay, I'm gonna really keep you here. I know. But something about like, okay, amazing. Physically, because I know like what Koji is, but I kind of don't know what Nuda looks like. What is it? It sounds almost like a SCOBY, like a solid SCOBY or something.
if you come by our table at the table there, we have a dip and noodles crushed up in a bowl that you can touch, smell, eat, you can do whatever you want with it. But noodle is a cereal-based inoculate, typically with wheat and barley, but other substrates include sorghum, mung bean, and frankly, whatever starches that you have available to you at any time. There's also noodles that you can make with rice only. The basic steps of it is it's a 3 to 6 month process, depending on the humidity and temperature that you're inoculating in. But you're coarsely grinding a grain, wetting it, forming it into dense cakes, and then inoculating that cake either open air or in indoor, or like pure like inoculation rooms, where the ambient kind of microbiology of that space is contributing to the inoculation. We talked about the various like types of fungi and various types of bacterial this food. But the basic functionality of it, how it compares to koji, is that one is fungi and meat in the same starter. Koji is just fungi. You still have to mention it in place. right? And then when it comes to the productivity of the root, on the bucket, again, you can imagine some for fungi. The reason why fungi are important in grain-based fermentation is because the enzymes that they're able to produce is ultimately what breaks down starch to sugar, right? But that enzyme is actually excreted from the fungal root, right? In coaching production, you guys have seen all pictures like where you inoculate the coaching spores on root seed strain. That koji, that fungus on any singular grain is embedding its fungal roots through that single grain, right? But in noodles, where the cakes get anywhere between an inch to 3-4 inches thick, that fungal root can dig through all of that material, as a result creating more enzymes. And as a result, the application power of a noodle, obviously it depends on how it's made, but typically is more productive than the koji, right? And from a yeast perspective as well, you know, and this is not, for the yeast perspective, it's not the thickness of the cake that affects the viability of the yeast, but generally wild yeast are more resilient than commercial yeast. They live in wider pH regions, wider temperature ranges, and for a greater length of time, and as a result, make them more productive from that. Yes. No citric acid, all lactic.
Thank you guys so much. That's our time. I want to give a round of applause. Some of them for Randy and Alan. Thank you for sharing with us. They're also pouring tons of broccoli at their tables. Please, I ask you just to leave everything on the table. We got a reset for the brewing session. And thank you again for attending and giving us your ears. Spread the gospel of food and broccoli.
Get the right.
Perfect.